Hi everyone, my name is Emma and I am a design strategist at Weave Content Strategy and Design. And today I'm going to share with you, I'm going to talk about something that is my new favourite thing to nerd out about, which is content design systems. And more specifically, I'm going to talk about creating scalable structure using content design systems in government. So governments are sitting on thousands of pages of content, as we know, and most of it is unstructured, inconsistent, it's impossible to scale. And AI raises the stakes, but interestingly, it really opens the door here. So today I want to share how we brought scalable structure to government content chaos and the thinking that got us there. So many government digital teams are grappling with some pretty gnarly challenges at the moment. They're managing mega sites within mega digital ecosystems, dozens of websites, thousands of pages, and there's not nearly enough people or governance to keep all of this in check. All of this is kind of in service of helping citizens do what they need to do. And with AI reshaping our digital landscape, getting on top of this mess is now more critical than ever. Many big organisations might be handling thousands of pages of content, but many of them are in a standard page or basic page CMS template. Content creators treat every page as a snowflake, unique to the goals of their part of their organisation and their perception of the user needs. This is not scalable. Because when you only have one template, you really have no template. And all of this is being made even more challenging by the fact that AI changes things, right? We have these AI tools that can streamline content creation, but these need the right inputs to be effective. And more than ever, our content needs to be optimized for LLMs and RAG systems to find, pass and return accurate information for our users. So at Weave, we believe that codifying information in ways that are meaningful to users and documenting this through a content design system are key to solving these challenges. So you might have heard of content design systems and thought they're just style guides, right? And often this is the way that we see this term being used, but we see an opportunity for them to do so much more. Content design systems can do for content what design systems do for UI in creating scalable structure, consistency, and efficiency. But how might we push this even further to make information user-centered, super scalable, and AI-ready? How can we turn it up to 11? This is a content design system that we created for an Australian state government client. It looks a lot like a design system and it serves a similar function as a single source of truth. But what it does and how we got there is quite different. So we took a whole of government approach to the digital ecosystem. We grounded it in meaning through an object-oriented UX approach. And then we documented our thinking in frameworks and patterns that provide consistent, scalable structure across an entire state government's worth of content. I'm going to tell you how we did it. For context, the core government website was around 10,000 pages big. So we ran a pilot project on a single area of the site that we could then scale up. We took a bottom-up content-first approach, as we always do at Weave. And today I'm sharing a small snapshot of a larger project that my incredible colleague McGee Noble and I worked on closely together. We were also super lucky to collaborate with an amazing forward-thinking client team who really had the vision and the trust to help make this work happen. So firstly, we had to get our arms around the ecosystem as a whole. And we needed rules for where everything lived, when new sites could be built, and what information could go on them. So we created organising principles for the many websites in the ecosystem through a whole of government framework. And this was an idea really pioneered by my colleague McGee. We captured this as a zone system based around the voice and the type of information that each website provided and its proximity to core government information and services. So the primary state government website sits in the middle. Websites for connected services like parks and attractions sit in Zone 2. Push information like initiatives and campaigns sit in Zone 3, and then independent sites like libraries sit in Zone 4. Then we focused in on the core state government website and we created boundaries around it. So the need for boundaries is illustrated really nicely by this little gem. This is a real page from a real state government client on how to brush your teeth. We come across content like this in our work all the time, as I'm sure many of you also do. Why would somebody go to their state government website to get this information? They probably wouldn't. So we created a proposition for the core website inspired by gov.uk's proposition. The proposition, if you're unfamiliar with this concept, is a series of statements that forms a commitment to the tasks and the information that users can find on the website. If it doesn't fit within the proposition, it doesn't go on the site. So the proposition defined the needs that users had. And this meant that we could then define the types of information necessary to support those needs. The website met thousands of individual user needs, as you can imagine, but there are strong, persistent, and consistent patterns in what citizens need and expect from government. And this was like the key that kind of unlocked things for us. So we used an object-oriented UX approach to identify information patterns that were grounded in intent and meaning to users, rather than basing them on page layout. So we codified these in an information model that defined the different types of information on the website. So as my colleague Angus touched on just before, object-oriented UX or OUX is something that we, a methodology that we love to use at Weave. It's championed by Sophia Prater from the US, and it borrows from object-oriented programming. Basically, it uses the principle of human psychology that we make sense of our world through objects. So, microphone, chair, highly engaged audience member, etc. So we adapted this to the information objects in the state government world. And this included things like topic overview, laws and rules, service summary, guidance, alert. Each information type also mapped back to the proposition and individual proposition statements to support the commitments that the website made to its. Then we created consistent structures for how to present content for 15 of these information types. And again, we used OUX methods to identify patterns in attributes across information. So what chunks of information kept coming up, whether a user needed a birth certificate or a driver's license? What fundamentally made a rule a rule? What fundamentally made a service a service? This formed the basis for developing an anatomy for each of these information types in the form of page patterns and content patterns. So we developed these through writing exemplar content to understand how to make them robust enough to work for different types of content across the site. we developed 12 page patterns which serve as a consistent source of truth for people to follow to create content with consistent purpose and structure. The approach for these page patterns was heavily influenced by the idea of encapsulated content, as you may or may not notice if you were here for my colleague Angus's talk, a term that he coined and I think is really, really powerful, especially with content like this. So wherever possible, page patterns were made up of reusable content patterns, just like components in a design system. Things like a page header pattern or an in-short pattern, which you can see here. The information patterns were designed around the consistent chunks of content a user actually needed to complete their task. Nothing more and nothing less. This means that for every laws and rules page on the site, whether for surrogacy, driving a truck, or fencing your pool, a user will know what they must do, what they cannot do, and where exceptions and special circumstances apply. Likewise, whether a citizen needs a birth certificate or a driver's license, the service summary page will tell them who can use the service, how to do it, how long it takes, and how much it costs. The information patterns were designed to work with the existing design system, but they didn't rely on particular UI elements to work, which meant they could be implemented without making any changes to the CMS, which was a really important part of the brief. But if you were designing a new CMS, this makes it really clear what changes need to be accounted for, and powerful in the way that they can then potentially be built in a structured way. Patterns for different types of user needs are handled at a job level, not a page level. They provide the missing level of fidelity between a standard page CMS template and UI components. It means that users have a comprehensive, reliable source of truth and a consistent experience accessing information and services. And AI as well has the context and the clarity it needs to return relevant, accurate information. As I learned from Ruth Hendry, what makes good content for AI is also what makes good content for humans. But for all of this to make meaningful impact, we brought everything together in a central source of truth. And not just in a PowerPoint deck that would lie buried on a shared drive, never to be read again, which I'm sure has happened to all of us. It's one of my deepest fears. So we use Zero Height to document all of our thinking in a content design system as the official home of how to do content across the organisation. It pulls together the whole of government framework, the information model, and all of the rules, guidance, and patterns. Zero Height is a purpose-built design system tool, but in the future we could do this in Drupal CMS. So it includes the proposition in all of its detailed glory. It includes detailed guidance for each page pattern and content pattern, including their anatomy, their purpose, the proposition statements they support, and the user needs that they meet, as well as visual examples and prototypes, which we included where it was helpful. It includes guidance on creating content for various use cases, such as a new campaign or initiative, and it also housed the style guide that was already in use. This empowers everybody across the organisation to create the right content in the right place, at the right time, in the right way, but also probably at the right time, consistently, effectively, and efficiently. So since launching the content design system, the client team has used it to roll out a patterned, structured approach to content transformation across other areas of the site with incredible consistency. Really very impressive. I think it can always be a little bit daunting when you kind of hand something over to a client and kind of expect it to be ruined. The consistency that they've been able to use this with is really phenomenal, almost like we did it ourselves. They have been able to use AI tools to speed up the process of content mapping and developing information architecture because everything is codified. They've also been able to extend the content design system with other information types that have emerged from other areas of the website using the foundations we created. And we expected that this would happen given that we focused on the pilot project on a small area of the site. That was the whole point, and we developed a process like a workflow for feeding new information types back into the system. The UX team as well have been able to use our content patterns as content requirements to design new purpose-built components for the existing system. Some of the kind of content patterns or page patterns we created were like really quite big. You know, something like a service summary is, there's actually just a ton of information that you have to communicate. And you know, there was accordions within accordions and all of these random little different ways that people were kind of treating this information because they didn't have a kind of an established solution. So the design team were able to use what we'd created and develop a solution that everybody could then use that was really effective and met the purpose. And of course, the page patterns give AI tools the context, rules, and structure that they need to redesign content efficiently and consistently. Happy days. We see so much potential here. This is why I get so excited about it. As Dries said in his DrupalCon 2026 Chicago Dries note, AI is only as good as its context. And he showcased Drupal's new Context Control Center module, which allows you to document institutional knowledge inside of Drupal to provide the inputs and structure to scale quality content. Imagine a content design system like this within the Context Control Center of your Drupal megasite. A source of evidence-based truth grounded in what is meaningful to users, to the business, and to AI. Clear, comprehensive, scalable structure. It's very exciting, at least hopefully to you. So like a design system, a content design system and the thinking behind it is an investment. It's an investment in thinking deeply about your content at its most elemental level. The similarities and differences, the meaning and the purpose, the way it actually serves your users. That thinking requires rigor, but it allows form to follow function. And it pays off in consistent user-centered experiences, more efficient content creation, and content that is genuinely ready for AI. Design for meaning, structure for scale. A content design system grounded in meaning is a valuable asset in the complex digital world that we are in. Thank you. Question? Only easy ones though, please.
Provide any like context framework for eventually use AI?
No, but that was always kind of a vision for the project or to be able to be added. So we kind of, as we were building out the design system, we kind of envisioned that as they started using it and we, you know, better understood how to use this with AI, that we could then kind of build, kind of accommodate or document that within the content design system itself as well. So I guess in what we delivered to the client at the time, we weren't able to kind of include that, but we certainly kind of allowed for it, and something that we are certainly keeping front of mind in terms of kind of evolving this idea and how we approach it. Does that answer your question? Awesome.
A related question. So, is that on? So, in terms of testing AI, have you always started out skills files?
No. Again, I think like our thinking around this is evolving really quickly, as you can imagine. So we're still kind of playing with it, exploring the kind of opportunities and boundaries, and how to make this work most effectively. So yeah, I guess, something that's kind of, we're still playing with, but kind of haven't gotten there yet.
I was going to get more granular and try and understand through this context.
No, not yet. But
what level of granularity?
Yeah, I guess I can't, we haven't gotten there yet. So, sorry, that's not a very good answer, but I guess it's more like we can see the potential, we can see how these two things could work together. Yeah.
And then while we're talking about AI, what's been
So I think, I guess there's kind of been mixed reactions, I suppose. I guess, we were very lucky to work with a team that had, a really amazing vision and were agents for change. And to be honest, who were actually probably up against it within kind of, the organisation that they were working in. But I guess, it's often just letting the work speak for itself, and just kind of showing by doing, or selling it kind of just by doing it. Because it's, it speaks for itself. Like what they've been able to do in the time with the resources, really limited time and resources with it, absolutely behemoth site has been really impressive. And that consistency, honestly, has blown us away. So, that's a pretty strong kind of business case for, adoption, I suppose. Yeah. That's it. Any others? Oh.
Thank you. You showed an example of breaking a content type out into different sections to guide the editors, and that was sort of textual in nature. Do you also go down and break things out in more sort of structured content there as well? For example, there's a checklist. Are you going as far as saying these are checklist items that you need to fill in, or is it just sort of text that people put in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So based on, I guess, the kind of limitations of the scope of kind of the project that we were working within, it was all text-based, intentionally. I guess, to kind of start small with the vision of making it, setting the foundations for the organisation to be able to create this as, structured content, which is definitely the view. But again, I guess, just kind of showing by doing. It's cool, well, you guys aren't there yet, but when you're ready, the foundations are already there, so kind of doing what we could to kind of meet their immediate need while also recognising, that future need or those future kind of opportunities, and kind of, being able to just push as far as we could at the time. So, yeah. But yeah, it's perfect for you can see it's not a far leap to structured content for sure. So I think it makes it very exciting. There was one more question in the corner.
Thank you very much. And my question kind of relates to the next steps of that. I think the remit on this was not to make CMS changes. If it had been carte blanche or do what you need to do here, how structured would you make that? What would that look like for non-builders?
That's also a great question. Because we ran a pilot on a small area of the site, we kind of knew that we could only cover so much, just based on this, slice of content that we were dealing with at the time. And so initially what we actually wanted to do was to run, what we said that we should do is run a couple of pilots, do a couple of areas of the site to kind of road test those page patterns with real content sufficiently to feel really confident in them, but also, of course, to surface anything we missed or outliers and other things that needed to be accommodated, which the client is now doing as they go through that process on their own. So I guess we had to be very conscious about if you're creating structure, it's like how structured, how flexible can it be? And I guess the only answer to that is by using the content as the evidence, to guide you. So I think theoretically, after a couple of kind of areas, we thought you probably got enough evidence to know how structured or how flexible different kind of information types or page patterns or content patterns needed to be. And again, that was kind of the reason, not the reason, but I guess a benefit of starting at, just kind of keeping it at words, and not creating too much structure too early, that kind of test and iterate idea, test and learn. So yeah, I think in time, long-term vision, go through a couple of rounds, know how structured or how flexible to be, and then use that to, create a CMS accordingly, I suppose, to facilitate that, give enough boundaries with the right kinds of flexibility and the right guidelines to kind of, put guardrails in place for the flexibility as well. Angus? No, it wasn't. Yeah.
So there wasn't as much opportunity
Yes.
to make CMS changes as there might have been at the website.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, again, like with the right opportunity, could make it amazing. So yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Question I don't know if you can answer. I don't want to be on the spot, but I'm sort of thinking about the structured data that you're doing, the increasing reliance on generative optimization, and I was wondering if you had an opinion on the role that schema has in that, and whether you feel that we'll get to a structured, meaningful content design, and that will be enough agents, sure, or whether
I don't know that I'm going to have a good answer to that question, but I think we can see that there's a need here, and we're not the only people that are seeing a need and trying to create and meet that need in a different way. So I mean, we've definitely thought about well, how does this work with schema.org? How do we, where are the other places where people are trying to create structure, and how do they marry up potentially, or how do they fit together? How do they work together or leverage off each other? So again, I think it's something that we haven't explored, haven't probably thought about that deeply yet, but know that it's a really valuable area for further exploration as we kind of evolve this idea and these approaches. But yes, thank you. Sorry, I hope that wasn't a bit of a cop-out answer. Thanks, Julia. Amazing. Thank you, everyone.